All right. So we've got a gentleman on here, Patrick. Patrick, last name. What's your last name, Patrick?
Gallagher.
Gallagher. I'm assuming you're from Ireland, your ancestors or something.
My dad's side's Irish.
Okay, I could possibly see the connection with the name and the hair and everything. I lived in Ireland. I don't know if you knew that. I lived in Ireland for 2 years when I was 19 to 21. So I had a little bit of Irish background there. We're going to break down his sales process that brought him, Patrick, when you got into Inner Circle, the advanced Inner Circle with us about 4 or 5 months ago?
Yep.
Now, were you in NEPQ 2.0 or advanced 3.0 before that?
So I did the 3.0, but not really. I kind of had to stop for a little bit.
You got into it, but didn't do anything.
Yeah, I did it for 2 weeks and then stopped and then came back to it.
Okay. And then you're like, I got to get into advanced Inner Circle now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. So we're going to we're going to break down his sales process, and he was already doing pretty good. Before, I think you were averaging 8, 9, 10 grand a month, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
But now he's acquiring the skills that are getting him up to consistently make, just 30 grand last month in commissions, 25, 30 grand per month. You just posted in there, you just made one sale. You better make 40 or 50 this month. You made one sale where you got a 20 grand commission. Now let's break this down, because you weren't, I believe you're only 24 or 25, right?
Yep. 25.
Okay. All right. So we're going to break down your sales process. Patrick's going to give you some golden nuggets, some hors d'oeuvres that I'm going to bring out from him on his sales structure, and 3 big things that he's changed in his sales process that took him from 8 to 10 grand a month to now 30 grand a month, because it's a big difference. And especially when you're living in New York, you got to make at least 25, 30 grand a month to survive out there, right? Especially with all the inflation and everything. It's not cheap living out there. You're not living in middle of Iowa, dude. All right, let's get into this. So Patrick, walk us through here. So I heard a little bit about you, before we got on here. You're in our advanced circle, so I knew a little bit about you anyways, because I've been talking with you on Voxer for every day or most every day for the past 4 or 5 months. Every morning, get the Voxer from Patrick. All right. So you got into sales just a couple years ago, right? Walk us through how you got in sales.
Yeah. So I started 2 years ago, and I'm in the financial services industry. So I initially didn't think it was going to be more of a sales position. I thought it was more just, I was going to help people with their finances and tell them what to do. And they were just.
So your major was finance and economics. Yep. So you thought you'd come in there and just show them how smart you were, and then just everybody would want to invest in your firm.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I thought. And it didn't work out very well initially.
Okay. Tell us what happened. Why didn't it work? What happened? What did you go through that first 6 months, a year, until you're like, okay, I think I need to learn how to sell?
Yeah, I would say the first 6 months, it was just working 14 hours a day, just running the numbers just to try to get someone to say yes.
Okay. So you're taking the hopium drugs, hoping and praying somebody would say yes. Okay, good.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just all trust objections. I don't want to just give my money over. I wasn't actually finding real problems. I was just kind of creating my own and saying, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. It was super difficult.
And plus your age, right? I mean, people can tell you're a little bit younger, possibly, right? So they might be a little bit hesitant. All right. We're going to talk about how you've learned how to help them overcome that. Okay. So you got in, you started learning how to sell. What caused you? So 6 months ago, what caused you to get into NEPQ? You were already making $8 grand a month, talking them into it. What caused you to be like, man, I need to make more money. I need to learn how to do this better.
Yeah. I just knew it was possible. We got guys in our company that are making, $1 million plus a year. So I knew it was possible. I just needed to try to find ways to improve my skills. And then I found NEPQ, and I really, I enjoyed kind of learning about it. And I just knew I needed something I needed to dive into.
How did you find us? How the heck did you find us anyways?
I think I actually listened to the podcast where you were with Brad Lee.
Okay.
I initially found you. Okay. And then ever since that, I just kept, just doing more research into it, and I finally joined Inner Circle.
Okay. So you got into advanced Inner Circle. Okay. In the beginning, what did you start picking up where you're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Just give us one or two things that you started learning that kind of like elevated your understanding of, just the wholesale in general. Before we go through specific questions we've taught you in different tonality, and we'll cover that. What are just one or two things that you really started to learn? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't know that.
I would say the biggest one was just like the language. I was very assumptive, and I could tell I was starting to have people put up walls, and they weren't really giving me the real problems they were having. So I was just like assuming that everything that I was showing them, they just automatically wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it was not working at all.
Give me an example of when you say you were being assumptive. Like, give me something, if you remember back how you used to sell, let's say a year ago. What would you like assume? What would you say? Give us an example. One thing you had said that you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm triggering sales resistance. You finally figured it out.
Yeah. I would say just I'm trying to think of like some of like the lines that I used to say. I try to forget those.
You're trying to forget, put the past behind you, huh?
Oh yeah. I was just like making assumptions about like just like their investment philosophy, like, oh, like you definitely want to get a higher rate of return, even though that might be a little bit more risk. Like I was just like,
see, you're talking to sophisticated investors. You're in their mind a kid, right? You're 23, 24, 25, and you're saying like, oh, well, you might want to get a higher rate of return, but let's say they're 64. They're not necessarily worried about a higher rate of return. They're worried about what?
Just protecting their dollars and not losing money.
Protecting their principal. So you assumed, right, for your industry, you were assuming that they were looking for one thing, but somebody that's a little bit older, more sophisticated, that has a lot of wealth, they'd be like, well, this kid's risky. Like he's going to risk my funds, right?
Yeah.
Because of your age, that's one thing you compete against, right? Because it's not like you're really talking to a lot of like 24-year-olds that are worth like 75 million every day, right?
No, not many.
Not many, right? Unless they got lucky in crypto or in some NFT or something like that.
Yeah.
So very, very rare. All right. So that's one thing you learned. Okay. What's another thing you learned?
I would say just having like a structure. When I first started, we didn't get any scripts or anything like that. So I was just winging it, changing my routine every single day. Yeah. And it just gave me mixed results. Like some days I'd get lucky and some days were just complete, just no.
Hoping and praying that something you're going to say is going to trigger the prospect to imagine you're taking the hopium drug. That's what most people do, especially in your industry as well. Because typically, because we train a lot of people in your industry that now make $1 million plus a year in commissions. All right. And a lot of them are very, very young, because typically in your industry, for somebody to even do that, which 99.9% of them never do, but the ones who do is because usually they just stick at it for like 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, 35 years, and they finally hit it. Yep. It's very rare that somebody like a couple years in is making 30 grand a month right off the bat. Right? Yeah, very rare, very rare. So that like doesn't happen. So well done on actually learning the skills. All right, so let's break down some of your sales process here. Let's give them some of the meat. They want some meat and milk here. So connecting questions. What is, there's several connecting questions we've taught you for your space, but what's one good connecting question that we've taught you to ask? And since you've been doing it, you've noticed kind of a shift in how your prospects react to you.
I would say the question of just asking like, so for my process, I give them a quick call and I book that first meeting. It's not really like a triage call. It's just kind of like just part of our lead program. They get like a free financial plan. So I kind of in that first call just go over just a brief outline. And then one of my connection questions is like, based on our first conversation, what was it that attracted your attention to book some time today? And that one, super helpful. It gives me kind of like that, kind of like a baseline goal.
What does it do to them? Like, how do they react to that? So based on what we talked about originally just a couple of days ago, what was it that we went over that maybe, caused you to possibly take a further look into this?
Yeah, it kind of like gives them like, I guess, the spotlight, and it's more of putting the focus on them so that they're the ones that are kind of not leading the conversation, but we're making sure that we're talking about what they actually want to talk about.
Yeah. And now, are you using that frame I taught you about towards the end of the call, if you feel like it might? Okay,
Yeah,
tell
I
us
use
about
the whole frame.
how's
So
that.
I use that. It's pretty good for sure because it kind of for me, I do like a 2 to 3 call close.
Yeah.
So
Well, you would for sure when you're talking about investing that type of money. These folks are not investing 10 grand with you.
no, no, definitely not. So that frame of like, setting that, not like a necessarily like a guideline of what's going to happen, but just, if you feel like this could possibly work for you, we'll go over like the next steps. It kind of just, I feel like kind of puts them a little bit at ease because I'm not making the assumption. I'm saying,
Yeah. You're saying if you feel,
yeah,
and towards the end of the call, if you feel like, that it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help you? Might be what you're looking for. If you feel, see, we're putting on them. Like if you feel that it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible. See, might be and possible are what? Neutral languaging, neutral
exactly.
wording. See how we're becoming neutral. We're putting it on them, and that triggers the prospect to let their guard down. That triggers disarming the prospect, especially when you're talking about the type of people you're talking with. I mean, these are not like, some person off the street looking to buy a $50 thing. Like these are a lot of the investors you're talking with are pretty sophisticated, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They've been around the block. Okay. Now, there's other connecting questions that you have to ask for your industry as well. We don't have time to go through all that, but situation questions. What's a good situation question we've taught you, and how do your prospects react when you ask that?
So one of my first ones is like you just kind of walk me through how you've been investing your dollars. And that just kind of gives me a nice layout of what they've been doing, whether it's like just a 401k or a brokerage account or IRA, stuff like that.
Yeah. So you're doing a lead-in phrase that we talked about. So John, can you walk me through like where you're typically investing your money in, or like what type of assets you're typically investing in? It kind of gives you, so it does two things for your industry. It gives you an idea, like now there's other situation questions you have to ask after that. Not just that one, not just that one alone, and you're going right into it. But it gives you an overview of kind of what's going on, who this person is. But more importantly, it also helps them see what their real situation is. Because we have to get the prospect that we talk to start understanding what their current situation is. Because if we can't help them understand what their current situation is, it's impossible to do what?
Build that gap.
Build the gap. Because if we can't help them see where they're at, how can we build a gap? We can't build any gap. Okay. So we first have to help them see what their real situation is, because most of your prospects don't know what their real situation is when you first start talking to them. Now, let's go. There's a lot more to that, but that's kind of an overview for everybody. Problem awareness questions. Now, here's the part, especially with your industry. You're dealing with a high net worth investor. Okay. What's one good problem awareness question that we've taught you, and how do your prospects engage with that?
Yeah, so I've got a bunch of different ones depending on the type of person.
Type of prospect it is, yeah.
Yeah, so like if someone's trying to retire earlier, I'll say like with the retirement plan you have in place now, do you want to like retire at, let's say 65 if you didn't have to?
So if they're like, well, my main goal is to retire at 65. So see how we've restructured his problem awareness question. We're not asking, do you like the retirement plan you're on now? It's a little bit different. So say that again to everybody. Say it like you would say it to a prospect, like tonality and everything. Like I'm the prospect.
Okay. So with the retirement plan you have in place now, do you want to retire at 65 if you didn't have to?
And how do they usually react to that?
Always get, oh, no, definitely not. Like if I can retire earlier.
See? So with the retirement plan that you have in place now, do you want to retire at 65 if you didn't have to? See how I slowed down my pace even a little bit more there?
Yeah.
I got to teach you a little bit better on that. You did good. See, I'm teaching you. See, that was good, Patrick. But that's going to take you from 30 grand a month to 40 or 45. So the little tweaks there. I want you to slow that down a little bit more. Okay. Right? That's good. All right. So that they're like, no, yeah, if I could retire early, of course I would want to. See how that automatically gets them in tune? Like, oh my gosh. But if I slow down, so with the retirement plan you have in place now, do you want to retire at 65 if you didn't have to? So it gets them to think like, oh, well, what do you mean? If I didn't have to, could I retire earlier? It triggers curiosity. That's really good. That's a good question. I think you and I came up with that on Voxer, didn't we?
Yeah, we came up with that one.
Nice. All right. There's a lot more problem awareness questions you have to ask after that for your space. Yep. Solution awareness. Now that we've helped them, because we've helped them build a gap in problem awareness, or at least part of the gap. Solution awareness questions is building the gap too. Now we got to get them to see what their future is going to look like once all these newfound problems that your questioning has allowed them to see they have that they didn't realize they had, right? So we call those solution awareness questions. What's one good solution awareness questions that get them to see what their future is going to look like?
So I like the one where it's, like, let's just do this just to make sure what we're doing could actually help you. Like, yeah. What are you possibly looking for in a new retirement plan? And then like we go through that whole frame. Like, let's say we had you come into our office and we're sitting in the conference room together to map out a plan for you. What parts do you feel you need in that plan to make sure you're able to retire at exactly the age you'd like? Like, what would that look like to you?
And how did they react to that?
They really start giving me a little bit more information about like what they actually want and what they're looking for. And then I can use that to kind of go a little bit deeper
in your presentation, right?
Yeah.
Now you know where their hot buttons are. So what you're saying there is that instead of a cookie cutter presentation that you're just going to say to everybody, which they know it feels cookie cutter, you're able to individualize it so to their situation that prospect feels like you, Patrick, understands their unique situation more than anybody else.
Yep.
And that's why they go with you over anybody else who's also trying to meet with them. Okay. Because it's not like you're the only game in town. Like they know there's other people in your space and other firms, right? So, okay. So that's important. Now you did a couple things and I know you didn't you weren't going through like the whole tonality. You're just kind of going over.
Yeah, just quickly.
So yeah, it's just quickly. But when you're going over, like, let's say that we had you come into the office where, we're sitting down in the boardroom, we're mapping this out together. Like, what do you really feel like you need to see in a retirement plan that's going to get you to be able to retire by 62 or repeat back whatever they said they want? Now, what did I do when let's say that we had you come in to the offices, we're sitting down in the boardroom and we're mapping this retirement plan out together. What do they visually see right when I ask that question?
Yeah, so they actually like start picturing us in a meeting together, building out a plan. And it just gets them to actually.
They might not know. They don't know what your conference room looks like or boardroom, but they're going to go to whatever movie they've seen or their own conference room. They're going to see some conference room. Visually, it's impossible for them not to see that in their mind when I say that. Okay, like that's where they're going to go. They're going to see them in there with you, like working together, like collaborating. And when they feel like they're working together and collaborating, they start to build massive trust in you. Does that make sense to everybody? It's really important. These little, we're just guys giving you just little nibbles compared to what Patrick and our clients learn in our virtual training and group training, training for sure. Little nibbles. We give you guys little nibbles here and there. All right. Now, there's a lot more solution awareness questions you have to learn for sure. That's just the surface. Consequence question. Now that we get them to see and feel, that's the most important, what their future is going to look like once these newfound problems are solved, we then have to rip it away from them with the consequence question so they defend themselves on why they have to change. What's a good consequence question we've taught you?
Yeah. So if we just stick with the retirement planning one, so so what happens if nothing?
Say it like you mean it though. Give me the tonality.
Okay. Might be a little off right now, but so what happens if you don't do anything about this though, and you just stay with your current portfolio? And because of inflation, which just keeps rising costs, instead of being able to retire at maybe 65, we have to retire at 70 or even 72. Like, what happens then?
What do they say? How do they react?
Usually it's like, oh man, like I can't do that. I can't work that long. I don't know what I would do if I had to do it.
So what happens if you don't do anything about this? you just stay with the same investments you've been doing, and inflation keeps going up. Instead of retiring at 65, you're now forced to retire at 70 or maybe 72 or 74. What happens then? See the empathy, the leaning in.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't keep working like that. Right? So that keeps doing what?
Building that gap.
Building the gap. And the bigger the gap, less objections you get, and the easier it is for them to want to change your situation. In fact, it becomes too easy at that point. Okay. Now, we don't have time to go through your presentation on here or anything like the pillars and how we process it out, but commitment questions. What's a good commitment question we've taught you to ask? Let's say on that third call, because you're typically doing usually a 2 or 3 call close with these type of investors. It's not a 1 call close when you're talking about the money they're investing. But especially when you're making $20K in a commission, obviously that's a very big investment that person did. What's a good commitment question we've tried to ask?
So I do ask the commitment on my first call. You have me for my script, so I'll usually just, so how important is it for you to, get a more efficient portfolio so you can X, Y.
That's like a qualifying question. Yeah. Okay. So like, oh, it's really important. Yeah. Okay. Good.
And then from there, I don't really have I don't even know if I have a commitment in my first call.
You're just in your first call, you're asking them a smaller commitment to go to the next appointment, right? Because in the next appointment, are you going through the proposal with them, or what are you going through them on the second call? Or are you going through more of their finances on the second call?
So the second call is a little bit more like analytical. We'll do investment reviews, financial software, stuff like that.
Yeah. And then the third call, but see, what you're doing is you're committing them to go to the second call. So, okay. So the first call, Joan, that kind of gives me a better understanding of kind of what you're doing right now compared to where you're wanting to be as your retirement. What we can do if you'd like is we can, and then what do you say to schedule the next call?
So depending on what it's looking like, it's usually something like, I can take back the information that I've got. And there's a couple of extra questions that I have because I do have to go through like a list of questions if I'm putting them into the financial software. And then from there, I can put you into our financial software to really show you where you stand today compared to, where you want to be. And we can kind of go over some of the strategies that we've helped some of our clients with in the past. Would that help you if I did that?
And how do they react?
Usually I've never gotten to know. It's always, oh yeah, absolutely.
What did I train you on how to get their financial statements? Because you're saying some people just wouldn't send them, and you'd have to constantly barrage them and call them to send you the financial statements.
Yeah. To try to put like a deadline on it, like when do you think you'd be able to get back to me with that, and then just kind of bring it back and try to get them to give me a day at a time.
So what I can do, what I'll need from you on your end is what did I teach you how to do there? I can't remember. What I'll need from you on your end is XYZ.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact line.
I got to go back through the boxers. So really the next step would be is blah, 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 blah. You book the time. Now, what I'll also have you send over so I can plug it into like kind of our financial software to come up with like the right plan based on what you told me is I'm going to need a couple, like your last couple of months of statements. Is that what you asked? Or?
Yeah, just like a recent statement.
And can I give you my book? Now, John, what's your time frame on getting the statements over to me today? Just to see if I'll be available to go through those a little bit later tonight.
Yep. Yeah. And it worked. I got someone to send me over statements today, just like that.
See how that works? Because if we don't, they just do it when they remember it, and we have no control.
Yeah.
See how that works? So now, Amy, what's your time frame on getting the statements over to me today, just to see if I'll be available to actually go through them in a little bit? See, that causes them like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've got to go find them, right? It's because you're basically just to see if I'll be available to go through them. And what does that imply?
That you're busy and you've got a bunch of clients.
Lots of other clients. You're not just waiting around for their statements, hoping and praying they send them.
Yeah.
It's a privilege that you're going through them. That's what it implies to the prospect. All right. Any last words of advice that you'd have for any salespeople here that are maybe brand new, or maybe they're a vet and they're just like, man, I'm only making this, but I want to make this. Like, what would be your advice to them? Any last words of advice to anybody?
I would say it's really just all about learning the skills. I never really thought that my industry was going to be so sales dependent, but once I started getting better, and I'm nowhere near where I could be,
Sure. You're only in 5 months here, dude. Like 3 months from now, 30 grand a month will seem pretty small compared to what you're actually making.
Yeah, it's all about just keep practicing it and working on the tonality and everything.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, like, where do you think you'd be at right now had you not gone to NEPQ?
I'd probably still be around 8 to 10, working. I mean, I still work a lot, but I would be just wasting a lot of time.
I mean, if you're going to work 10 hours a day, you might as well make 30 grand a month.
As well make some money. Yeah.
Right. You might as well make 22 grand a month more than you were before. It makes it a little bit more rewarding. All right.
Absolutely.
I love that. All right, guys. Thanks for everybody being on. Patrick, thanks for being on as well. Look, you guys want to learn these skills? We just gave you a little nibble, little hors d'oeuvre here. Okay. You want to learn these skills? It doesn't matter your industry. We train every single industry on planet Earth. According to Forbes, there's 158 industries. Did you guys know that? It's crazy. There's subsets of those, and we're in every one of them right now, which is insane, including yours. You guys want to, so if you want to start making your first 10 grand a month consistently, I'm not talking 1 month, you'd hit it, the next month you're down, but like every month, you want to start making 15 grand a month every month, or 20 grand a month, or be like Patrick, who's 5 months into the training, now is making 30 grand a month. Or if you want to make 40 or 50, which that's where he's going, or 60 or higher in your industry that you're right now. Because I can assure you watching me right now, and Patrick, that we have people, many people, probably hundreds, if not thousands, that are making 3 to 5 times more than you are in your industry that you're watching me right now. And it's not because they have cool hair. It's not because they wear cool t-shirts like Patrick. It's not because they have cool jeans or cool socks. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is the right skills that work with human behavior. And once you learn how to disarm your prospects and get them to want to open up and engage, and you learn the right tonality and the verbal cues and the verbal pausing, selling becomes very, very easy and very, very profitable. Okay? Because if we don't learn those skills, what is the one thing for sure that will happen? You're just going to stay at the income you're at right now, or you're probably going to go down. And does anybody really believe that inflation is just going to go all the way back down to what it was? I hope you don't. Does anybody believe that your favorite politician is going to bail you out somehow? I hope you don't. So why don't we take financial control of what we can do? And if we learn the right skills, like Patrick is still learning, he hasn't stopped, it's pretty much impossible to fail. So you want to learn those skills, post hashtag NEPQ. You can't message me directly on YouTube. Patrick, you're a saint. Appreciate you having on here. I'm excited to see where we're at even 3 months from now.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot different.
Well done. 30 grand a month is nothing to sneeze at, but I'll be happier when you're at like 40 and 50 and 60 grand a month, because I know New York is expensive.
It's a killer.
You got to be making more. It's a killer out there. All right, guys. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for being on. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.